And as you say, Odesa was the latest strike by the Russian missiles. The total of dead is increasing all the time at the moment. Ukraine's claim they shot down 2 of the 4 missiles that came over, but it's pretty evident from the destruction we're seeing from the video footage on the ground that some got through. Also overnight, the Russians also struck at Kramatorsk. There were 2 people killed at Kramatorsk over here. And in Kostiantynivka, another person died there with another strike. This, unfortunately, follows the night previously. Kryvyi Rih was also struck with the biggest attack we've seen for quite some time, actually. This is the home of President Zelensky, and actually there were 12 deaths, 30 injured, 127 properties that were damaged as part of this strike. Again, none of these appear to be military targets. It's either Russia trying to target Russian logistics and rear support infrastructure, or, which looks more likely, just a blatant continuation of the attacks on the civilian population of Ukraine.
And Sean, Belarus has threatened to enter this conflict if there is aggression against it. Why is President Lukashenko saying this now, do we think?
It's fascinating listening to President Lukashenko. On state TV, he said that he had received some of the nuclear missiles that are coming in. He said he wouldn't hesitate to use them if he had the chance, if he was threatened. He has been described as the last dictator in Europe, and it does feel like the rhetoric of a man who's got a set of new toys, bluntly. Let's really be clear here. President Putin made quite clear when he said he was moving missiles that Russia would retain control of them. These have complex codes. There's complex processes for launching them. There's almost no way that President Lukashenko would ever have the chance to have his hands on the trigger. Now, on face value, these announcements are more just to remind the West of the threat of nuclear escalation in Ukraine. But the harsh reality is that moving these weapons forward to Belarus makes no difference at all to their utility around Ukraine. What it does make a difference for is with those missiles into Belarus go a whole load more Russian soldiers. And once again, it's pretty clear that Russia is struggling to subjugate Ukraine militarily, but it's absolutely doing an invasion of Belarus by stealth at this time.
How important do we now think air support is going to be in deciding who comes out on top on this conflict?
It's an interesting question at the moment because overnight we've been trying to keep track of progress of the Ukrainian counteroffensive. The Ukrainians claim they've taken a few settlements. Russia claim they've pushed back. But it's certainly no breakthrough at the moment. But what we are seeing is very hard yards from Ukrainians. They're up against established Russian defences, and we're now seeing an increased use of the Russian Air Force, using their frogfoot aircraft, as shown here, doing close air support. Now, it's worth remembering that the West, when we go into battle, we will try and establish air superiority first because it's incredibly debilitating being attacked by your enemy aircraft on the ground. Now, of course, Ukraine don't have that luxury, and therefore they aren't able to establish air superiority, and they are being attacked from the air, which has raised questions of whether the West should have got F-16s, shown here, into Ukrainian hands earlier. Now, as a former fighter pilot myself, just giving them F-16s would not have changed the balance of this war. But if there had been some available for this stage of the conflict, it would certainly give the Russian Air Force a little bit more to think about rather than just attacking the Ukrainian forces as they're on attack.